So this one's going to be a little different from the last few that I've uploaded. Still along the lines of things that I'm interested in, and if you're here, that means you're interested in it as well. But I'll probably have titled this one "Why I Prefer to Not Use Streaming Services." Um, yeah, so I was talking to a friend a few moments ago, and I sent her a rather lengthy Marco Polo video explaining to her why I prefer watching Blu-ray movies or movies on Blu-ray as opposed to streaming them. And in summary, it's all about quality. The streaming services are extremely convenient, and I see why they have become and are as profitable and popular as they are, because who doesn't want to be able to just sit down, watch, turn on the TV and watch, whatever they want to watch? I mean, if you're subscribed to three, four, maybe five different services, forget the cost, but you then have access to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of movies, TV shows, and of the like. So before I get to what you're seeing on the screen, I wanted to go back a little bit and explain that we've I've always liked movies. Many people do, and of course, when I was younger, we had VHSs, and then I do remember our first DVD player. In fact, I think the first movie we watched on it was Traffic. My brother was in driving school, and apparently the instructor recommended that he watch the movie Traffic, which has nothing to do with actual driving, but that's what we watched. So many years ago, we were watching that. And then we continued to use the DVD player, and then many people did. And, the DVD stuck around for quite a while. Um, and, still exists today. So can't pretend that it doesn't. But I do remember when I first subscribed to Netflix. I think I was an undergrad. I had you receive a disc in the mail service, because the streaming in service, I don't want to say it didn't exist, but it definitely wasn't countrywide. So I'll say it didn't exist when I first subscribed to Netflix. And that was more convenient than going to Blockbuster. The price per disc that you were getting was cheaper than going to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video. And of course, we all know what happened to Hollywood Video and Blockbuster. I think there's still technically one Blockbuster left. It's either in Alaska or in Oregon. I think at one point there were two left, and there was one in both states, and then one eventually did close. But I believe there's one Blockbuster left. And as Blockbuster went out, Netflix definitely grew in popularity because of the ability to just sit on your butt, on your phone, on your computer, whatever, say, hey, I want to add these movies to my queue. And then they would show up in your mail, a day or two later, and you'd be good to go. And I really enjoyed that. And of course, at some point in time, I said, you know what, DVDs are cool, but let me give this Blu-ray a try. And I remember watching them, and I enjoyed them. But I remember I was hanging out with a friend, Sean, and he, we both went to the same college. And I said, hey, man, I want to show you something. So this was a revolutionary period for us both. So I had the movie on Blu-ray, and I connected my I guess my Blu-ray player to the television using the composite or component, the red, the white, and the yellow cables. You know what I'm talking about. So I plugged those into the back of the television, and I played the movie. It was the movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg. And he was like, all right, cool, man. Like, what, thanks for, showing me. And I was like, all right, cool. Wait. So then I said, all right. So I turned everything off. I unplugged those particular cables, and then I plugged the DVD or the Blu-ray player into the TV using the HDMI cable. And I started the movie again. And he was like, what? Is this even the same movie? Like the level of enthusiasm in his voice, I don't think I could match, but it really makes that much of a difference. And that opening scene of Shooter, there's a bunch of green grass, and I don't think it's an open meadow, but he's about to shoot somebody or a helicopter or whatever. Hopefully I'm not spoiling the movie for anybody that came out quite a while ago. But yeah, just the combination of a high def picture, a high def signal. So the disc itself is full HD, and then being able to be carried over a medium that's that's able to support that, and then being shown on a high def television. And that was my first TV that I had with an HDMI port. I was mind blown. I was sucked in. Sean was thrilled. He was like, "Man, this like is this literally his words were, is this even the same movie?" I was like, "Yes, it is." And at that point, I wasn't showing him just Blu-ray, but clearly it made a difference. I was also showing him, hey, HDMI, which also had been out for a while, but that was the first time I was really exposed to it. Definitely makes a difference in your picture quality. So since then, back I think that was 2009, picture quality has definitely been something that I've been enthused about. So fast forward maybe even just a couple months. I mean, I'm in my dorm room, and I'm still getting my stuff in the mail. And at some point, Netflix lets us know, hey, you can now stream Netflix. And I'm like, what? So I tried out the internet in the dorm, but what wasn't too great. So I don't think I used it too much. But that's, streaming was coming about. And that was back in 2009, maybe 2010. I'm sure if somebody looked it up, they could, find a specific date. But for me, my exposure to it was 2009. And, fast forward a couple of years, I'm still getting the disc in the mail. I'm still paying for cable. And yeah, life is life. And, hey, this show comes on at, 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Make sure you're there. I mean, you can pay more for the DVR service or whatever, or if you have a TiVo, blah, 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 all these options to do whatever. Streaming is still there, but I'm not using it, too much. I am using it, so I'm not going to say that I'm not. And I'm still getting the disc in the mail. And at some point, I started looking at things a little different. And I will say, I was a I was a high school teacher. My first full-time job out of undergrad and really in grad school as well was as a high school math teacher. And we all know teachers don't make a lot of money. And I ended up departing that school to go become a college recruiter. Took a pay cut to do it, but my overall living expenses also went down, so it was kind of kind of balanced out. But when I went to go take that position as a college recruiter, I moved to a new state, new city, new state, and I said, you know what? At this point, I think there is enough stuff on Netflix that I don't need cable anymore. So I cut the cable or cut the cord, however you wanna phrase it. I think cut the cord is the appropriate term, but it could be either one. But yeah, I am no longer paying for cable. I am simply going to get internet service. And back then, I think I was paying $30 a month for I think 25 megabits down, which again, well, not again because I haven't said it yet, but from my perspective, and everybody's going to be different. Thinking about that, that was back in 2012, and here we are in 2022. The internet service providers back then said, "Oh, you want the fastest speeds? If you're gaming, if you want to watch high def stuff, boom, get our fastest plan." And I think the fastest plan back then was 25 megs. And not to chronologize, not to say things over and over again over the course of the last decade, but now here we are. You can get a gig. I don't know if you can get anything faster than that, but they're saying, oh, if you want the fastest speeds, if you want to game, if you want to stream, you got to get the fastest speeds. Do you need a gig into your house in 2022? I don't know, maybe, but I doubt you'll actually need it. If everything's over Wi-Fi, you're not going to see the best speeds all the time, but and that's just my experience, and I think a lot of other people have similar experiences as well. But yeah, it's just interesting how the companies are always trying to market you to get their most expensive plan, and sometimes they'll do that little middle ground where the middle one is the most popular one, which maybe it is, and they have data. And I hope that they wouldn't lie, even though I'm sure that they would. But at this point, we're back in 2012. I've cut the cable. I've cut the cord. I'm only paying for internet. I'm satisfied with my speeds. I'm satisfied with what I'm paying. I'm satisfied with Netflix. I'm satisfied with getting disc in the mail. And honestly, things are good. Things are good. I watch some stuff through Netflix streaming, and I watch some stuff through Netflix disc in the mail. I also got an antenna that I plugged into my television and was able to watch live TV that way, whatever stations were local, and things were good. And all along, I continue to go forward, kind of with that same MO of having a little bit of Netflix streaming, a little bit of Netflix in the mail, streaming Netflix in the mail. But I have not paid for cable since 2012. Yeah, late 2012 is when I decided to take that new position. And since then, things definitely have changed. So here we are in 2022. What has changed? So at one point, I realized that getting disc with Netflix in the mail was no longer advantageous because you would want to get the new stuff, and the new stuff, of course, was in theaters for whatever period of time. Then there's laws in place that say, how much time that has to happen and how much time needs to pass. I think between then or the release, and you can start selling the movie. Then when it's available on demand, and then when it's available to purchase, available to rent via Netflix streaming, or rent via Netflix mail or Redbox. And a lot of time would pass from when the movie was released and when I actually physically got the disc in my hands. And I said, I don't feel like waiting, not only the time for it to get out of theaters and get to Netflix for them to mail it to me, but I would log in frequently and I would see that I would say, oh, I got this movie in my queue. It's coming up next. But right under there, it would say long wait or very long wait. So letting you know, hey, yeah, it's available to rent from us, but it's not going to arrive to your doorstep for quite a while. Now, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I don't know how this actually works. Like, is it a first come, first serve? Is it random? Like who is the first person to receive a disc in the mail from Netflix when they receive it? And it got to the point where I was looking at movies as they were released in theaters. And when it was released in theaters, I would add it to my Netflix queue to receive it in 4 or 5 months. So I was like, there's no way I can't get this at least in the first week or so if I'm adding it to my Netflix queue to receive in the mail when it's either not even in theaters yet or just getting in theaters. So I was like, hey, I have to be first. And that wasn't the case. I did call Netflix to complain about that, and I forget what her response was. I think she said it was random or something. I don't know. But either way, I was like, I'm never first. Like, I could factually say that for new movies, I was never first. And maybe like when I first started, and I can't remember back then, but it got to a point where at least where I was no longer never first. Or I was no longer first. Sorry, no longer never first. So no longer first. And that was too much for what I was paying. Prices had gone up. They had separated the streaming package from the disc in the mail package, and I said, you know what, I'm just not paying for this anymore. And that was the end of that. And I might have had my timeline backwards because I think I might have actually stopped paying for Netflix streaming first. But I think I started repaying for that. So I think Netflix streaming stopped after that at some point too, and that was mainly because we all go through it where you're looking for something to watch and you don't find it. So you just keep looking, and then before you know it, you know, 20, 30, 40 minutes have gone by and you haven't made a decision, especially if you're trying to watch something with somebody. So I was like, you know what? I'll continue with the antenna that I had at the time. Or I had a Hulu subscription, so I was watching that. And I just found other things to do. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube. Needless to say, Netflix streaming no longer did. Netflix in the mail no longer did. But then over the years, you know, while all this is happening, every once in a while, I would get like a free, hey, Redbox. I don't know where. Maybe that'd be my email. I honestly don't remember how I was getting them. But hey, you get your little coupon code, go down to the Redbox, get a free movie. So boom. So Redbox definitely has, you know, been there and has remained here. Maybe not as popular or is not as used now here in 2022. But in the small city that I'm currently living in, there's a Redbox. I don't want to say on every corner because it's not every corner, but there are quite a few here. So clearly somebody is still using them, myself included. So that's another service that I started using it and continue to use that would provide a means for me to watch things. But I forget exactly how I started this, but the whole point of all this is to say, hey, I enjoy quality. And like I said, I was on a Marco Polo with a friend explaining, all this, and it got me to like, what's the best way for me to, I guess, not, I want to say accurately depict, but also just, give you a clear visual, not necessarily of the movie itself, because we all see things differently. Same thing with audio. We all hear things differently. And I'm not going to talk about audio stuff, but I wanted to say, hey, what can I do to show, at least in terms of numbers, there's a difference between streaming a movie through one of these services and the disc itself. So let me do that. So I was able to do some digging online, and I came across two different things. Like in fact, what's on the right is a screenshot of somebody who's downloaded The Mitchells versus the Machines, a movie that's available to stream on Netflix. And at one point in time, I think it was only on Netflix. Yeah, you got that N up in the top left corner of the little thumbnail right there. So I think it was a Netflix original. I use that term very, very loosely. But if you can see, it was downloaded to that person's device, and you can see it takes up 455 megabytes. Now, honestly, that doesn't really mean anything to most people. I mean, that's almost half of a gigabyte, which again, also doesn't really mean much to anybody. But numerically, it means something. So, and you take my word for it, it does. That's about, and in fact, I'll say that for later. But about half of a gigabyte. Okay, now that was the right side. That was the download of the movie. But on the left side, and it's kind of hard to see because all this is black, and maybe I could have done something to lighten it up a little bit. But on the left side, there is the Mitchells versus the Machines. Somebody was able to see the actual file size of the movie on a Blu-ray disc, and that is coming in at 19.6 gigabytes or gigabytes, that little I or that big 19.6 gigabytes, which again doesn't really mean much to most people. But again, numerically, it has meaning. It is saying, hey, this is taking up this much space on this disc. Same thing with that movie on the right when it was downloaded in the Netflix app. This movie is taking up this much space in this app on whatever device it was downloaded to. So excuse me. So now I feel like even though we're not even watching the movie, I'm able to draw a comparison between the same movie, one downloaded through the Netflix app and one on a Blu-ray disc. So 455 megabytes. Let's round it up to 500 megabytes just for the sake of making math a little easier. Then let's look at the left side with the disc at 19.6 gigabytes. Let's round that up to 20 gigabytes. Again, just for the sake of math. Now, that 500 megabytes for the movie that was downloaded in the Netflix app, that's half of a gigabyte, roughly speaking. So, but yeah, just for the sake of making it simple, half of a gigabyte. So if that movie is half of a gigabyte, and the movie on the left, the movie that was on a Blu-ray disc, is 20 gigabytes, the movie in the Netflix app is a 40th of size of the movie that was on the disc. So when they took it off a disc, or when it came from the studio, or whatever they did, they said, we need to make this extremely small, so that way when we're streaming it or sending it out to our customers, it comes down to a more manageable size. So again, it's not half, it's not a quarter, it's not a tenth, it's a 40th in size, a 40th. So yeah, imagine you have a pizza and you somehow cut it up into 40 pieces. The original pizza was the movie on the Blu-ray disc. They said, we need to take this whole pizza and condense it down to now one of these pieces that you somehow managed to cut up into a 40th of the size of that, or it's a 40th of the size of the pizza. So yeah, a lot of compressing goes into the video and to the audio. And when you do that, you lose quality. There are advanced algorithms out there to try to minimize that. I don't know if Netflix uses whatever, I don't know if they use the best algorithms or what. I'm no expert on that. There are plenty of videos out there that do a far better job explaining what compression truly is and different ways that it's done, and then what the end results are of said compression. But for me, when I look at this and I see that one movie, the same movie, is a 40th of the size of the original, and again, it was, I'm sure, compressed at some point to get it even on the Blu-ray disc. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. I'm missing a lot of information, and not the movie length itself, not the dialogue, so, but all of the underlying information that adds to the quality of the film has to be removed, and not all of it, but a great deal of it has to be removed in order for Netflix to be able to stream it. Now, I will give Netflix the benefit of the doubt. So one, they might be using compression algorithms that really that for most people won't affect the quality of the film. I'll be honest, when it comes to animated stuff, I don't know if I see the greatest amount of difference. When it comes to animated compressed films. I mean, I know I will sometimes, but sometimes it's not too bad. Two, I do know that if you go into your settings on in the Netflix app or on the Netflix website, you can change the quality of video streaming. I don't know if you can change the quality of video downloads. I have not seen that. I am not too sure. But either way, hey, maybe you can change the quality of video downloads and we can bump that up a little bit. Not going to be 20 gigabytes, but maybe, bumping it up a little bit would be, possible. But the one thing that I think I wanted to point out, and hopefully I'll be able to wrap this up in a few moments, is that when I look at that roughly 500 megabytes, okay, 500 megabytes, you have a video track, so the images you're seeing on the screen, and you have an audio track. That's total 500 gigabytes. A standard audio CD is 700 megabytes. So that audio only CD is potentially larger than the video and audio that comes along with this movie. And for me, that says a lot too. In addition to the comparison that I made about, this movie and the Netflix app to the movie on a Blu-ray disc, if I'm thinking, okay, I got a whole movie, and in terms of file size, it's smaller than this album, which is only audio. How much information did you have to remove to get this movie down to this file size? And I don't like that. But what are you going to do? I guess you could watch some movies on disc. Everything that's available to stream is not available on disc. I know that. Hopefully, internet service providers are able to better build out their networks to support true high def video and audio, so that way we don't have to watch movies that have been compressed to a 40th of their original size. I don't know. So I think I've covered everything that I wanted to get out of this particular video. A 40th of the size, a lot of compression has to have happened. Ugh. That's why I prefer watching movies on disc. And I'll reiterate, in Netflix, when you're streaming stuff, you can change the quality. When you download stuff, you might be able to. A lot of people can't notice the difference. And heck, I'm sure, depending on the movie, maybe even I won't notice the difference. And depending on the compression algorithm, maybe I won't notice the difference. And then two, or lastly, or whatever number I'm on right now, some people just flat out don't care. And that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. So I can't think of anything else that I want to cover when it comes to this. We all, see things different. We all have our own opinions. All care about different things. All like the convenience of having a streaming service. But yeah, I really think this was a good, accurate representation of what you potentially are missing when you choose to stream primarily compared to watching something on a Blu-ray disc. Thanks for listening if you've made it this far.